Hello, inclusive leaders, and welcome to Lead at Any Level Live. I'm your host, Amy C. Waninger, the Inclusion Catalyst. I am so excited to be with you today on this Monday, August 21st, and I have a special guest with me today. Please welcome my new friend, Stacey Saunders. Stacey, welcome.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing today? It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I am so excited to talk to you today. Now, before we go too far, let's talk about how we met. Because
Yeah,
you and I are both coaches for the Ensure Equality Summit, which is coming up on September 15th.
yep.
And you want to talk a little bit
Friday.
about what that is? Yes.
I love that you're throwing the ball to me. It's like, do you want to talk about what this is? Sure, because I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you know about the summit, which is that Ensure Equality, which is looking to have new conversations around equality, equity in the insurance industry, and how we bring that conversation to the table, and like what does it look like in this day and age, so that everyone feels included at the table, or if we build a bigger table, or if we just sort of knock down the table and like build a new one. But sort of what does that conversation look like, and how do we bring our talents and skills there. So I am very excited to be a part of it. I am glad that I am able to have met you through this whole process and to be here today. So thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So I'll fill in just a little bit more about the summit. It's happening September 15th, and it's in Chicago, and it is put on by an organization called Ensure Equality. And Alyssa Stamp is the founder and executive grand poobah of Ensure Equality. It's all about how do we transform the insurance industry. Snaps to Alyssa. We absolutely love her. One of the cool things about this summit is everybody who registers gets a free coaching session, intro coaching session with one of the coaches. Stacey and I are both coaches for this event. I'll also be a panelist at the event, and I'm really excited about that. And with some like new friends and old friends, it's going to be just the best time. So if you're in the insurance industry, you'll want to check this out. I put the link in the comments, but you can also go to Ensure with an I, equality.org/summit to find out more. And Stacey, you and I, sorry, I'll get back to what we were going to talk about today. So one of the tenets, I believe, of inclusive leadership is not only leading with your own strengths, but recognizing other people's strengths and playing to those strengths as much of the time as possible.
Yes.
And this all comes from a book and kind of a whole movement, positive psychology movement. And I'll see if my green screen works with me here, but there's this wonderful book called StrengthsFinder 2.0, and it's written by Tom Rath, and it's distributed and managed and by the Gallup organization. And Gallup has like 80 something years worth of workforce data. And what they've done is they've distilled all of these different things that we can be good at down into 34 talent themes. And you can take your own strengths assessment on the Gallup website or with a coach like Stacey or me. And what it tells you is what makes you uniquely you, and what makes you most productive, engaged, and fulfilled, not just at work, but in general. And Stacey and I bonded over a shared experience of having worked through this book and this assessment. But before we get to ours, I want you to let me know in the comments, if you're watching, whether you're watching hashtag live or hashtag replay, let me know, have you ever taken the Clifton Strengths or the StrengthsFinder, it used to be called StrengthsFinder assessment? Let me know in the comments if you've taken it. And so, Stacey, tell me about your experience with this assessment. How did you find it? And what shift did it create for you when you took it?
Yeah, I feel like I want to start with the last part of that question first, which is in terms of how it's affected me. In terms of my top two strengths, which is strategic and relator, this is how I approach life. And it's just interesting how these two things continue to show up, like not only in my astrology profile, like if I did numerology, if I, working with a spiritual advisor, just to be like how much of like relationship, like I'm all about curating experiences and what does that look like, but then have enough of the strategic piece to be like, okay, here's how we're going to do this step by step, and how to break things down. So for me, it's like, oh, how interesting is this showing up in like all areas and spaces, and how much is this messaging getting being presented like to me. And then one of my other top strengths is learner, which is just like, oh wait, like that completely understands my wanderlust at times, or like the fact that I love to travel, or that I'm just always learning or researching. Like I can be watching a TV show and then, Googling like half the things and getting the backstory. And then it's like, with this, how did these people meet? And, getting all of that information. So I really carry those things into my coaching, but also into like other spaces into my life. So how about you?
I was gifted this awareness of this program by someone that reported to me several years ago, and he asked if we could all take the assessment, and I said, yeah, that'd be great, let's do it. So we all took it, the whole team, and it was one of the best days I've ever had at work, because it was just so funny, because everybody took the assessment at the same time. We were in a cube farm, and I could hear, as people got their results and started reading them, I could hear them giggling. And I knew exactly what conversations we would have later, based on what they were reading, because all of the conflict that we were having was because of people's strengths kind of butting up against each other, or them getting frustrated because the way it's done or the way they do it wasn't the only way to do it, and they weren't seeing that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that. So I was first introduced to this, strangely, like not in a corporate setting. So like 8 years ago, when I went out on my own, I was introduced to this, just kind of like, oh, again, how do I understand myself better as I move into coaching? Like what, using all of my skills and talents. Okay, let's see what this report has to say. And then I retook it just like 2 years ago. And then to see sort of the difference in what are the things that are still showing up as strengths, where things shifted, and what is this saying about me now? And so it's just, and it just makes me laugh every single time. And I think even as we were sharing before we hopped on here today, to be like, how many we have in common just in our top 5, but then where do some of the other strengths play out for us as well? So.
And one of the things that I love about this tool is, if you take a Myers-Briggs profile, you're one of 16 things, right? They have 16 buckets. It's 4 buckets, and you get 2 per, right? So you're one of 16 combinations at the end. If you do a disc profile, you're kind of one of 4, with maybe a little bit of lean either way. So, maybe 8 to 12 different variations of the thing. But with the Clifton Strengths report, there are 34 themes, and you get just the most basic report gives you the top 5 in order. Well, your top 5, the odds of your top 5 matching somebody else's top 5 exactly is like 1 in 34 million.
Yes.
And that to me seems like a better representation of how common I am in the world. I don't know about you, Stacey, but I don't think there's 16 types of people and I'm one of them. I think there's maybe 34 million types of people plus, and I'm one of those.
Yes. And then also how our data is continuing to shift and change how those 34 things function in our lives. Because again, we're one of like many people, on this planet. And so what does that then reflect out? And then for me, oftentimes many of them fall into like one part of the percentage. So it's kind of like, well, I can't have 5 ones. So those 5 then become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's kind of like, how does that like, and it's possible that other people may have a similar type of percentage working out for them, but probably not exactly the same. So
exactly. So you alluded to some of yours. You talked about strategic, which is seeing the big picture, being able to kind of, the way I describe strategic to people is, if you've ever seen the Avengers Infinity War, when Doctor Strange is sitting there, he's kind of floating and he's moving really fast and kind of glitching, and he says, no, I went through 14 million different potential futures and I found the one that works. Yes. That to me is kind of the embodiment of strategic, right? seeing all the different
Let's just use Marvel as our example of all
Marvel
of
for Marvel or Lord of the Rings. Those are my two
yes,
go-tos
it's
for
just
me.
Avengers all day, every day. Let's go.
Avengers all day. So strategic is the Doctor Strange, right? Looking into the future, finding the path that's going to work.
Yeah.
Relator is the people who, it's like the opposite of small talk, right? We like deep talk. We like big talk.
Yes.
Where we really want to know, like, tell me the messy stuff going on and let's talk about it and let's work through it.
Yeah.
And really get to know each other deeply, quickly, if you will.
Yes.
I share that one.
Yes.
And then you mentioned learner, which is learning for the sake of learning, not because there's a degree involved, not because you're going to get a certificate, just because you like to hungry hippo up knowledge.
Yes.
Are my analogies driving you crazy? Are they putting you in?
I love all of this. The hungry, because it's like I listen to podcasts every day. Like I think I just did a training last night on something, and it's just like, okay, great. Like this is how I want to spend my time, and it's just like, oh wait, I'm just gonna grasp, like absorb what you're bringing to me, and it's just like a sponge, and then it serves us in our coaching, like just in terms of how do we relate, how do we build rapport, to be able to go deep quickly and, kind of tease out some of those, angst that folks are having. Cause I'm looking to hold people accountable. You're looking at retention. It's like, okay, great. It's like, well, it's like, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm holding for you. Or to be like, oh, we can also be able in those difficult moments, be like, hey, like, I just noticed your body shifted, or like your voice or your tone shifted. Tell me what's going on for you, like right now, to be able to pinpoint those, like as we're working with folks. So
definitely. Now we have 3 of the same top 5, but the 2 that we have different are way different. So your 2 that are different are empathy and positivity. Can you talk a little bit about how those play into, you alluded a little bit to empathy just now, but how do those play into the work that you do as a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the positivity, I'll speak more into that one. And we were having a conversation about this before the call as well. Is, initially I was like, positivity. I was like, I'm not, positive like all the time and like rah rah and that whole like I'm a boss babe and just kind of, the really toxic positivity. Exactly. Like, please, like, get out of here. Like, please don't make me slap you right now. But it's like all of that toxic positivity that we see in the world. And it's like, once I read into sort of how Clifton's is explaining this, it's more of just kind of like energy, like there is an enthusiasm. It's literally to be like, okay, great. Like I'm going to be reading the room in a very different way than someone else, might. And we talked about, whether it's intuition, whether it's a mood type situation, we were speaking into that for both of us, like how does that play into how we coach and how we are in spaces, and how do we then either elevate, or how either we might not elevate, but also how spaces can suck and drain you in very different ways as well. So for me, it just it gave me better understanding of like positivity, to be like, oh wait, yes, that's exactly what I'm bringing to the table. And then where can I be expecting others to rise up, or to be like, oh hey, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm going to be okay in this space? And I think empathy plays into that as well, because again, being able to go deep quickly, I then have to be able to hold the space for folks to be in that vulnerability, right? Or even for me to be in that vulnerability. And then how can we both like, elevate from there? And my next one, so my 6th one, which is not top 5, but top 6, is maximizer. So again, how are we going to create an even better space than either one of us envisioned? So I think that again, as they all play together in this, Strength Finders soup, is just like, okay, great, this is amazing. So I get to choose which Avengers I get to assemble at different times.
Exactly. Now, what's funny to me is, so I don't know where positivity falls on my top 30 or on my whole 34. I haven't looked at it recently. I know empathy is dead last. And I used to be confused about that. I used to think it was because I didn't have empathy. And I've since been corrected on that. And the truth is, and you and I've talked about this too, if you're crying, I'm crying. I don't have to know why we're crying. I see you cry, I'm in tears, and then I'll come say, okay, what are we crying about? What's the matter with us right now? Right? Like I'm totally wherever you are, right? I'm just there. And so it's not that I lack empathy, it's that I'm really uncomfortable there. And my two that round out my top 5, interestingly, are input and activator. So let me explain what those are.
Nice.
Input is a collector of things. So it's not enough for me. I learn for the sake of learning, but I have to catalog all of the learning. I have to know which books I've read, which books are on my to-read shelf. I have to know which people I know and which people I know well, right? Databases and lists and spreadsheets are like how I keep. Yeah, so there's some questions in the chat. Put the questions in the chat if you're interested in learning more. Please ask away. And so, but the cataloging is important. And my son laughs at me because I say, oh no, I collect people. I collect people from all different parts of my life.
Yeah.
And I basically have the database of my people. And then when I find 2 people that need to meet, I know exactly where to go find them and like almost pull them off the shelf like a library book and say, this is the one you need right now. So that's a superpower I have that I didn't understand for a long time until I took this. But the activator is funny because activator is like, I will say, I'm fond of saying, I don't like to admire a problem. If I see a problem, I want to fix it. Yeah. If I know what the plan is, I'm ready to execute. Like as soon as I know the plan, I'm not looking for consensus. I'm not looking for, like I don't need a UN vote or whatever, right? Like we know what we're going to do. Let's go do it. Like if we're going to move, let's put the house up for sale tomorrow. Like let's just get it done. Yeah. And so sometimes I can come across as very abrupt, right? Or a little bit too quick to take action, but it's just because I'm ready to go now. And I know because I'm strategic, I've either thought it through or I know I'll be able to think it through. I don't worry about what might happen tomorrow because of this decision that's been made. We'll just work it out. So it's really interesting to me how we can have 3 of the top 5 the same, but the 2 that are different are vastly different. And then we show up in very different ways in our work and for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. But then it's also like in terms of our first conversation that we had, or like as soon as we met each other, we were already like vibing and like jamming. And because it's like possibly because of those other 2, but then I'm sure if you brought forth the rest of your research, it's like, okay, how does that compare to my report? It's like, oh, wait, like we're going to find some other similarities, or to be like, okay, like, I think what did you say? Empathy was like dead last for you. And strangely for me, what is it? Indecision or like decisiveness or something to that effect is lower for me, which is very odd and very strange. But at the same time, I am a Libra. So, hey, okay. But, and then individualistic doesn't show up until like 20. And so I'm kind of like, but I'm an only child. So I was like, okay, great. So it's just, how do these play and like mesh together? Because again, sometimes you need some of those other things like the softness or kind of the curves, or just to like lessen the edges, right? Because certainly it's like, yeah, as an only child, yes, I can be bossy, I can be this, but again, it's like, I am going to be able to bring some empathy. I am going to be able to understand where you're coming from. And then, like you said, be able in that strategic, see all the things and then be like, okay, great, here's the path forward. And like, once I have that, great. Then it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why are you not listening to me?
I already told you what the right thing to do is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did you not see how the first part of that Civil War ended? Like, everything went to black and, everything was gone. Okay. We didn't know what was going to happen for like a whole year. And then they magically came back and finished the war. But, it's like, we got to but how do we play in that space? And so I'm like, every time I see what folks, what the results bring to people, and certainly as I am working with folks, it's one of the things that I request that they take. So again, to just be like, oh, wait, like, okay, this is how this may play out, or like based off of what they've said to me, it's like, oh, you're spending a lot of time just trying to like find the right thing, and like you're doing all the research and you're doing this, which can be great and lovely. But at the same time, you're getting into that paralysis. And then like, that's not so good.
Right. So there's a couple of things that you touched on there. One is that we have mature themes, right, that we've developed, and then we have these underdeveloped themes that can sometimes show up as weaknesses. And the way I explain this to people is, if there's something that you've always gotten in trouble for your whole life, it's probably an underdeveloped strength, right? So the kid that's always in trouble for talking, always in trouble for talking, always in trouble for talking, is probably either really strong in woo, which is winning others over, really strong in communication. A lot of times these folks go on to become professional speakers. I know, because I know a lot of them, right? And it's not that they're bad communicators or they're bad for communicating. It's that the context is not conducive to it, or they haven't figured out how to channel it appropriately yet.
Yes.
And so all those things that you have been getting in trouble for your whole career, your whole life, are probably strengths that are just underappreciated or underdeveloped, that can be redirected and retargeted if you know how to use them right, and productively. And another thing that you touched on is kind of these lesser themes. We don't have to be strong in everything, because we can surround ourselves with others who have those strengths.
Yes.
And the goal is not to be the most well-rounded person. The goal is to be the most highly developed version of you, right? Yeah. That you can be. And then where you know that, like for me, if I know I'm walking into a crisis situation where empathy is going to be a real problem because it's uncomfortable for me, I can call my friend Stacey to come and help with that. And help navigate those conversations that make me uncomfortable, or to help, kind of soften the room a little bit, or kind of be that holding space, right, for folks, because that's where you're comfortable. Yeah. And then once folks feel like they've had a soft landing, now we can get them going on what we're going to do next, which is my strength, right? Yeah. So it's all about getting the right team together, getting the right Avengers on, assembled.
100%. Well, and then it's also not stepping on each other's toes, right? And we saw some of that in the first Avengers or whatever. But then it's like, okay, Captain, run the show. Okay, great. Here's what everyone's going to do. Great. Now, activate, right? But it takes a minute to get to that, because again, we're all showing up. And, we're all superheroes, right? So I got a specific thing that I'm really great at. But then again, if I'm just doing that one thing, it doesn't serve. And, I have just recently watched The Last Dance, and I just watched the Lakers documentary as well. But again, it's kind of like Magic or Jordan, and even one of those cases, yeah, Jordan had to learn how to pass the ball. You have other people on the team. It's like, this is not a one-person show. And so when you're bringing that greatness to the table, it doesn't diminish your greatness. And interesting fact. So fun fact for me, and I just love how you spoke into this beautifully as well, is that, I almost got kicked out of the 3rd grade for asking questions. So, and so learner showing up, just doing my job as a little child, just like asking questions. The teacher found me disruptive. I was distracting to the class because I had some questions for them. Mm-hmm. And I'm very thankful and blessed that my mom, who is the person that she is and was, she's no longer with us, but to be in that moment, just to be like, I'm not sure I wasn't in the room where it happened at that time. So now I'm going into Hamilton, but I wasn't in the room where it happened, but I do appreciate that she was like, you need to do your effing job. You know what I mean? I am not, what? Like, she asked, do you know the answer? Like, basically, like, I could only imagine what that conversation looked like, because my mom, definitely an activator. And when you said that, I know that instantly you are more than just an ally. You are, what's the other A word that I'm looking for? That's going to be like, if I call you, we're just going to be in the streets to just be like, okay, what just happened? Like, okay, you just woke me up at 4 a.m. Like, yes, I'll be there. So it's like, yeah, no, I
accomplice, I think, is the word you're looking for.
That's the word. I was like, the other A word. What's the other A word? Like, there's a lot.
I've been called other A words too. I'm not going to lie.
Accomplice is the one I was looking for. So it's like, I know if I call, you're just going to be like, where do I need to be? And like, okay, earrings are off. Like, we're doing this. And then it's like, once we do the thing to be like, what happened now? Like, it just doesn't matter.
Because if you're crying, I'm crying. And if you're mad, I'm mad. And we're going. And then I'll ask questions later.
We're going down. Like, where do we need to be? Like, I'm like 100% for that. Yes. And so this is why we get along. And I am continually assembling my Avengers. I usually say my Ocean's 8 team because, again, sometimes we need attorneys who are not in the room where it happens, just in case. But also just to be like, oh, you know how to crack safes? Okay, awesome. Like, great. You know how to drive really fast? Awesome. Great. Okay, boop, let's go.
Stacey, what are you drafting me for? I'm not sure.
I know, right?
I'm not sure if we're changing the world or robbing a bank, but
doing both.
We'll figure it out later.
Doing both. We're doing both, just in case.
Right. Plan for all contingencies. So, Stacey, tell us just a little bit, because I want to make sure that I do you justice here.
Yes.
Tell us just a little bit about your business, who you serve, and how people can reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Stacey Saunders. I can be found on LinkedIn, Stacey Saunders 1, I think. I'm also on Instagram, Saunders Consulting, which is the name of my consulting firm. And I work with individuals and teams on their group dynamics. So how are they working and playing well in the sandbox? And ultimately, I'm looking, I did mention that I'm an only child. So at the end of the day, I'm looking at how do I function inside of groups. So this is just all, again, that learner, like I get to learn each day, like by working with my teams and the people that I serve and support to be like, okay, great. Here's how I'm holding you accountable. And then like, oh yeah, that's not going to work if you're trying to do that together or to like sequence something or, how do things fit? Like you can't always fit a square peg into a round hole. Like you can eventually, like if you jam it in there, but I'm looking for you not to jam things into things that don't fit.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't want to damage people along the way. So
no, we want to create better humans throughout the world. And again, whether those better humans are then doing heists, great. I'm here for it. I'm going to give you the skills and tools to help you do that more efficiently. So
long as one of them is George Clooney, we're good.
I think if you see George Clooney, like him or Alec Baldwin, you should definitely run because Alec Baldwin's usually the guy who recruits you for the CIA in all the movies. Mm-hmm. And then George Clooney is just looking to be like, can you make a good grab? Like, so
yeah, there we go.
Good people.
All right. Well, Stacey, I want to thank you so much. Hang tight for just a second because I want to let everybody know that's watching that we are trying to do these Lead at Any Level lives every Monday at noon Absolutely. Eastern. The last couple weeks I've been out because I was sick and then my kids were sick. And so we're getting back on track. So Mondays at noon Eastern for Lead at Any Level Live. And be sure to join me this Thursday at noon Eastern for the Including You podcast. Including You is where I interview chief diversity officers and other executives who are advancing inclusion in their workplaces. Occasionally, I'll have some practitioners, outside folks as well. This week is one of those weeks. I'll be talking to Sonia Thompson. Sonia is the chief executive officer of her own media company. She runs Thompson Media Group, which does advertising and marketing. And we're going to be talking about marketing inclusion. It's a really good episode. You won't want to miss it. That's right here on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Tune in Thursday at noon Eastern for Including You. And if you miss it, or if you prefer audio podcasts, you can subscribe to Living Corporate, wherever you get your podcasts, and Including You is the Friday show under the Living Corporate umbrella. So that's what I have for you this week. Stacey, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing movie reviews and StrengthsFinder reviews with me. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Yeah.
Yes, in just a couple
weeks. Chicago.
Yay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.